Hello, Kayla.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, it's too loud already. I need to step back a bit.
Yes.
I'm good, thank you. How's your week been?
It's been good.
Okay, so first of all, I think we need to apologise. We missed yet another week. That's my fault, though. I was out of town, and I messed up our recording the previous week. But we're going to make up for it today, because that recording that we should have done, we're going to do today.
Yes.
Yes. And that is actually our first requested topic, which is...
Steroids.
Or PEDs, bit of both. Primarily steroids, but we'll talk about other ones. Mainly the use of synthetic or illegal or banned substances, I should say, in sports, but also some of the ones that are used to give you an edge that may be legal or just for aesthetics and stuff as well. Do you know anyone that's taken or has taken steroids or
Like
any other
personally,
PEDs?
or...
Yeah, personally.
No. Not that I'm aware of.
I think I've known one or two people, you know, and like they would never properly admit to it, or they'll be like, oh yeah, it was just like one cycle 10 years ago, or it didn't mean anything, but it's like, yeah, but you knew what you were doing, you know, but they always try and play it down, but it's like, well, no, you did it.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging, I'm a little bit, but not entirely. You know, it's, you're sort of like, well, I don't know, yeah. It's fine. I've never known anyone to do it massively, but...
I don't think I've ever known anybody.
I don't know many people in high-end sport or that are bodybuilders, so that's really where you see it mainly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess in that case, let's get ready to mumble. What is steroids, or what is the generalization? What do people think about steroids? Wait, what do you have information-wise?
All right, so your body naturally produces these hormones that are also made in, like, man-made in steroids, but your body naturally produces them, and they help your organs, tissues, and cells do their job, and they're needed, like, in order to, like, have muscle growth and all that, you need a certain amount of them, like a healthy balance of them. But because of that necessity, they've been man-made, because in some situations you might not have the correct amount of those hormones, and you need the steroids to help produce more.
Okay,
So that's where corticosteroids came in, and those are medicines used to fight inflammation quickly. So if you have something like rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, COPD, any like autoimmune diseases like that, you're given corticosteroids, and they help like reduce inflammation and treat those illnesses. But then the other type of steroids are anabolic androgenic steroids. And these are like the anabolics.
Yeah.
And these are the man-made versions of testosterone that builds the bigger muscles. So these are what, like, they also can, I mean, they're made by like pharmaceutical companies, so they can be prescribed by a doctor.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have enough, if your body doesn't produce enough to or something like that. But in other realms, they're abused for muscle growth. Yeah, as performance enhancing and muscle boosting drugs.
Yeah.
So about 1% of the U.S. population uses these, but studies show that most of them are athletes. The majority are heterosexual men, median age of 25, that are non-competitive bodybuilders and non-athletes. So they're using them just for cosmetic purposes.
Yeah, which seems crazy, but also very understandable. It's like, you know, people going about how women are falsely sort of led into being zero-size models or, you know, unrealistic views, but it's the same for guys. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's, I don't know, it is the same for guys, maybe not to the same extreme by any means, but there is that sense of, oh, I need to be bigger, I need to be stronger, you know, I need to be desirable. Things like Instagram don't help.
Yeah, like just bigger muscles in general.
It's easy to, I know it sounds silly, but it's kind of easy to manipulate a picture to look like you got a big butt.
Yes.
It's not to show that you've got abs. You know? Yeah. That's...
You don't use the app filter?
Well, yeah. I forgot about the app filter.
Yeah.
I wish we had them. They'd be a lot easier to...
yeah. And then so then they're also used in like... Well, they're also abused in many competitive sports, such as bodybuilding, weightlifting, track and field, cycling. Baseball's been a huge one. Wrestling, MMA, boxing, football. Really any competitive sport, they end up getting misused during.
Yeah.
So...
Which is a shame. It does ruin some sports, but
yeah.
I mean, that's such as life. When there's money involved in competition, people want to win, and they'll do anything they can to win.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I've got a little bit more detail about the science of steroids themselves, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about the other PEDs, performance enhancement drugs that are used. So as you mentioned, steroids are the natural sort of hormone that we have, and they can be synthetically or naturally made, and they're made of like a specific 4-carbon molecule, a 4-carbon ring structure. Sorry, and that goes from the synthetic ones all the way to testosterone, and that molecule itself is, depending on what's attached to it, will give you the different form of it, but that's what's used to attach to the receptors in the human body. And there, as you mentioned, there's two functions: the cortisosteroid and andronic one. And the andronic one is mainly the one that used to improve strength and athletic ability. And that's mainly because those ones are similar to the sex steroids, which are testosterone and estrogen, or estradiol, or something like that. And they basically combine with the androgen receptors, which is what testosterone would combine with. Just to kind of clarify some things, I think I'm getting a bit off weird here, but anabolic or anabolism is basically a metabolic pathway which constructs molecules from smaller units. So essentially it builds up organs and tissues from that process. The androgen is a natural or synthetic hormone which is used to regulate development and maintenance of the male characteristics using the androgen receptor. So testosterone attaches to the receptors, and it helps create the process which increases the anabolism, or the anabolic stuff, which increases the size and etc. of tissues and stuff. When taking steroids, a number of things happen. As I said, they combine with the androgen receptors and they move into the nucleus, which then attaches to a certain DNA within everyone's structure, and in turn it activates genes which increase protein synthesis, something we heard a lot about during our supplement thing. And that protein synthesis goes into the body. Essentially what happens in the muscles, protein synthesis allows more amino acids or various other things into the muscle, creating proteins within the muscle, increasing hypertrophy? I don't know, increases the size and strength of the muscles essentially. But not only does it do this, it also helps slow down or prevent or delay the breakdown of muscle. So you're increasing muscle at a higher rate than it's breaking down. Therefore you get the crazy, insane size. As I said, it can greatly increase the size, but also helps reduce fat by stopping the differentiation in the fat stem cells. I don't quite know what that means. It's more just repeating. But essentially I think what it's doing is it's stopping some of the molecules in your body become fat cells. So instead of your body going, oh, we don't need to use that to create fat out of it, they'll either put it into the muscle, where it can break it down and create protein synthesis, or it will just get rid of it. Which is another great thing for bodybuilders. They don't want that wasted fat. And as I mentioned, so due to steroids increasing muscle tolerance, it allows them to recover faster, train more frequently. So not only you get increased muscle mass, without the decrease in muscle mass, they get better quicker. It's all around good stuff. It sounds like all good stuff. However, and I think you might have some of this stuff as well, steroids don't only just go to the muscles. We have receptors all over our body. In particular, we have a lot in our brain as well. So in our brain, these steroid receptors are being filled and letting out certain chemicals. If they're filled by testosterone, naturally, and even amount, you'll get the right amount of hormones released for other things. But they will also potentially lead to massive mood swings, which are very known. You've got that thing as roid rage, but anger, aggression, even depression, low sex drive, sort of worthlessness also comes with it, depending on how your brain reacts to it. And that's because it happens in the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland within our head, which a lot of our sort of processes go with. So we have the good sides, but a lot of bad sides along with it. On top of those bad sides, we also have, with the increased synthetic levels in your body, or even fake testosterone, whichever it will be, which I'll talk about in a moment, you tend to cycle on and off these. People don't take it forever. Everyone knows it's not good for you, but they'll cycle on and off. And what happens is your body will stop producing natural amounts of testosterone because, I need to work. Something else is doing it for me. So on these off periods, you have an even lower version. You don't feel as healthy or as strong as in men. You lose your sex drive, you lose certain functions downstairs, all this sort of stuff happens, which is not great for any man. Nobody wants that when you're trying to be a massive bodybuilder, but you can't get it up, can hen. Don't know why I went anyway. For women who take it, they have all the benefits that men would have, including things like facial hair, underarm body hair in general, lowering of the voice, strengthening of the muscles and graining of the muscles as well, but along with other side effects of that as well. So you basically are becoming more manly because you've got more of the gene, which is the masculine gene.
Yeah.
And men, another thing. God, I'm just rattling them off, but there's so many bad things.
I have a ton of them too.
Testosterone naturally. So this is more if you take natural testosterone, but I'm sure it probably affects some of the synthetic ones as well. The body naturally turns it into estrogen. So within the body, if you've got testosterone, yes, some of it will help you develop. Also, any leftover or spare that's not been used will turn to estrogen, and that's where you get some men developing boobs. They get them mammal. What's the glands called? Mammary? Yeah, mammary. Those glands.
Yeah.
Basically, so you'll get some tissue growing around the chest and breast just because that's what happens, and it's there are ways to kind of counter it, but it's never a good thing.
Yeah.
And so it happens a lot. You see it a hell of a lot. In addition, because there's more, it's bad for increased testosterone, and these sort of steroids can increase cholesterol because it's a type of testosterone, type of hormone that's created, which can lead to heart problems, liver problems, kidney problems. So it's all pretty bad stuff. I've not known anybody to take them and rate them highly. And you see all these bodybuilders that, if you see them nowadays, they look so bad.
Yeah.
So worn away, so sort of feeble, if you compare to just a natural athlete who's maintained a good progress. Do you have anything else about these steroids that are bad, anabolic ones specifically?
Yeah, I have a few more side effects. So dermatological, it increases acne, oily skin. You said the body hair growth. Or it can do the opposite and cause like balding and hair loss too. And then fluid retention as well. You said a lot of...
Was that fluid retention?
Yeah.
As in, you can't retain fluid, or you do?
You do retain fluid. Right. If kids take them, it like messes up their entire growth.
Yeah, I bet.
It causes premature closure along one of like the growth plates in the long bones, so it causes them to be shorter.
Okay.
They don't actually reach their full height.
Uh-huh.
And it can cause early puberty. It can cause early puberty in boys or delayed or early puberty in girls. So it can do either in girls.
I guess if you've got more testosterone and estrogen, that's probably causing the... I don't know. I don't know enough about the hormones, to be honest. But
you mentioned a lot of the psychiatric issues, musculoskeletal. Because of the increased muscle growth, there tends to be a lot of like tendon ruptures, and rhabdo is a big deal. Like it's easy to get.
I guess if your muscles are growing at such a high rate, your cartilage and your cartilage won't be able to, and your tendons won't be able to keep up.
And muscle strain too. Cardiovascular, a lot of the like heart problems and heart disease. Blood clots are a big deal. What else? It can cause fatty liver and liver tumors and liver cancer. Wow. And also kidney disease. and kidney failure.
Now, I wonder how many of these things are actually like, it can do this. Will it? Probably not.
Yeah.
Because 1% of the American population, male population, or was it full population?
It was the US population.
That's a lot. Surely, I bet you the percentage of them who actually show some of these symptoms probably isn't as big as it made out to be. Like, you always hear about, or you have heard about these crazy, whether it was wrestlers back in the 90s or bodybuilders from the 90s and still nowadays having issues, but there's a lot of them that you don't hear about.
Yeah.
And by no means am I advocating steroids. I don't think it's the best way to work hard and get what you need, unless you have a problem, or unless you're changing your sex at a young age and you want to become a man or woman, get the hormone replacement. But I honestly would never consider steroids.
No.
It's not, I don't know. Like, when I get older, I would consider TRT, which is testosterone replacement treatment. But that's as you get older and become an older man and you still want to keep lively. And I'm so active now, I'd hate to not manage that because of my testosterone levels. Yeah. But that's going to be fully doctor-driven and not for aesthetic purposes for living.
For sure.
But that's about it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these are also depending on how long you probably take them too.
Yeah. So. But it can permanently damage your body more than it permanently... As I said, you see these bodybuilders, they're no longer the He-Men they used to be. but they're permanently damaged livers. They're all on medication. Or some of the women, there's one or two of these old bodybuilding Olympian women that just don't quite maintain that femininity that they probably desired or wanted, or and it's hey, I'm sure they're happy, and I'm not judging them on these looks, but it does change you, and whether or not you can't change back, it's very difficult to change back if you can.
For sure.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of, there's some of the synthetic ones that we have, some of the famous ones. I don't know if you might have some of these, but there's one called Stanzolo, which is a synthetic anabolic steroid. When it injects it binds with andronic receptors, as we mentioned, and it increases muscle growth and delays breakdown. But apparently this one's safe for women, so I don't think this one is broken down to estrogen as readily. So it can, it's not testosterone, so it won't generate the same sort of hair loss or body hair growth or all these sort of things. There's another one called Nandrolone, which is very similar. These ones Olympic athletes have been picked up for and was big in the 90s. There's tamoxifen. This is quite a famous one as well, often used in Olympics, and it is used to alter the production of testosterone. So it's not directly in replacement of testosterone, but what it does is it attaches to the part of the pineal gland that it basically tells the pineal gland to produce more testosterone. So it's naturally producing testosterone, it's not replacing it, but it's still doing at elevated levels. So it's harder to kind of identify. So essentially, testosterone converts to estrogen. These combine with estrogen receptors in the pineal gland, which limits the test production. So tamoxifen binds with the estrogen, which means it cannot bind with the pineal gland, and therefore test isn't stopped. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So estrogen usually limits the amount of testosterone, but because we are limiting the amount of estrogen, testosterone keeps on getting produced. So that's what tamoxifen does. What other ones do we have? There's terbutaline, which is a slightly different one. Actually, that's something altogether different. It's a steroid used to help with asthma, and it has been suggested to make muscle contractions stronger. You get them in inhalers.
What was it called again?
Terbutaline.
Okay.
It's a beta-2 agonist, which is slightly different to this anabolic steroids. And it's not 100% proven to do what it says, but it has been known in like cyclists and stuff to use it to increase muscle contraction. But yeah, so that's the first main one everyone hears about. When you think steroids, this is what it is. Steroids covers a massive array of drugs. So many of them great drugs that help millions of people who are ill, and a number of them which help you get big and massive in a miserable life in the end.
Yeah.
I've got a couple other drugs. So what other, if I said to you PEDs and you weren't thinking steroids, what other things would you think of?
I mean, until I did this research, I just thought it was steroids. But I've since learned that, like, especially looking at the sport side of it, the oxygen uptake, or like blood oxygen something, there's that, and then that's all I know about. Yeah.
All right, so we'll go with that one first. That's a good one. So that's blood doping. So everyone has heard of Lance Armstrong. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about him later. But he did something that people refer to as blood doping. And there's a number of different ways of blood doping. But essentially, the way the body works has got sort of 3 cycles of producing energy, or like making muscles work. You've got the oxidative, you've got the glycolytic, and then you've got the phosphagen. So the phosphagen's quick, very fast movement. It's when you use phosphagen, creatine, or whatever in your muscles to get a snappy, quick response, like 1 rep max type stuff. You've got a glycolytic, which is like a 0 to 2 to 5 minute, and that's when you use the glucose and stuff in your body, in your muscles. And then you've got the oxidative. So that's you getting oxygen from your blood to your muscles, which use it, and that's for the long endurance type stuff. Hence the Tour de France. So what blood doping does, it helps increase the oxidative system in the human body, and it can in turn allow for greater aerobic capacity. So the maximum aerobic capacity of a body is limited by 3 things. You've got the max cardiac output, so as much as your heart can pump. Okay. You've got which is the heart rate, volumes per strokes, so how much blood you can pump through per stroke. And then you've got the maximum O2 extraction. So basically the amount of blood that can be extracted, the amount of oxygen that can be extracted from the blood. Okay? So that is limited at a certain amount per cell. So you can get 90% of oxygen per cell, for example.
Okay.
But if we can increase the amount of blood that we have, okay, so we increase the hemoglobin mass, we can increase the amount of oxygen that we can get. Does that make some more sense? Okay, excellent. So, how do we do that? There's one called EPO, which is erythropoietin, I believe, which are basically peptides or hormones produced by the kidneys. And this starts at erythropoiesis, something like that, in the bone marrow, essentially. So it goes into the bone marrow, and inside the bone marrow, it increases the hemocytoblast. All these words, man. Which increases the carrying capacity of oxygen in the blood, while increasing the red blood cells. So basically, increased oxygen flow in the body, and it can reach higher aerobic capacity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so essentially what we're doing is creating more oxygen in the red blood cells, get to the muscles to work longer. There's another way we can do this, which is blood transfusion, which is often what we hear. So you get some athletes, especially ones that work up in high elevation, because when you walk up in high elevation, your body naturally produces more blood cells because it has less oxygen, so it's got to create more blood cells to provide more oxygen. And they will work out there for a couple of weeks, months maybe, then take out some of their own blood. When they take out their own blood, their blood's full of their own blood cells, it's thick, it's still got the oxygen, then they freeze it, or do whatever they want. And then when it comes to game day or near a game day, they pump the body back for that blood. So now you have a couple of litres extra of blood. Not only is it extra blood, it's got elevated levels of oxygen that you've had from the elevated heights. So then what it does is your body's got more oxygen for that period of time.
Yeah.
Which, happens to a great effect. Now, there are many ways that this has been able to figure out what sort of levels you should have, and if you've got increased erythropoietin, the hormone in your blood and stuff, but it's still pretty difficult to find. You can tell that because Lance Armstrong had to admit it before they really caught him.
Yes.
The side effects for this are pretty low. So there aren't the same side effects as you would get from
because you're
steroids.
just using your own blood.
Yeah, if you're using your own bloods. There is potential for contamination, but that's, if you do it right, it's not going to happen. And this is a natural thing. It's not like if you elevate it, your body's going to stop doing it itself.
Yeah.
Your body will react depending how. I can move up to Colorado or go to Mexico City, and my body will do it naturally and come back down, and it will reduce naturally.
Yeah.
So it's a very similar thing, and it greatly increases your endurance, your aerobic capacity. However, it doesn't increase muscle mass. You can look at these cyclists, and they are stick thin.
This doesn't seem like it should be banned.
Well, yes and no. Like the elevation people, that's not banned.
Yeah.
I can go up there and, many fighters, Denver's got some of the best MMA fight gyms in the world, or Colorado, because of the elevation they can work at. Now, places like Phoenix also does, and that's not very high at all, but...
Yeah.
And many of these cyclists and other athletes do go up to those levels to train because it is better for you.
Yeah.
When it comes to the transfusions and stuff, that's giving you a false advantage working at the same level as everyone else. Same with the EPO, that it's your body synthetically producing more oxygen, if you know what I mean.
I guess, but I don't know.
Either let everyone do it or don't let anyone do it.
Okay.
The thing is, at the moment, they can't control who is doing it. So half are doing it, half are not doing it. Well, they say that. So Lance Armstrong, apparently one of the years they banned him, or they had to go down to 14th place before they found someone who hadn't emitted or hadn't tested positive for blood doping. So the whole Tour de France is fucked up.
Yeah.
As I don't believe that anybody in the Tour de France that hasn't or doesn't blood dope to some degree. And now I may be totally wrong there, but have you seen the Netflix documentary Icarus? Mm-hmm. So it's all about it. Great thing. Guys, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's really interesting. It goes into the Russian scandal as well from the Olympics, which is dead interesting. But you should watch it. It's good. All right. That was blood doping. I've got two more. I'm going to try and squeeze it out quick because this is going to be a long episode.
Yeah.
The next one is one called insulin. Now, everyone, are you familiar with insulin?
I mean, just from diabetes and stuff.
Yeah. So the main thing let's start. Insulin is a hormone produced within your body naturally. It's produced by the pancreas, and it is used to metabolize. Thank you. Metabolize carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Okay. Just naturally what you'd use to break down the food you eat.
Yes.
And once it breaks this down, it promotes absorption of particular glucose into the live fat and skeletal muscle cells. So, your body absorbs the glucose because that's your source of energy. Okay, so it promotes that. So the control of insulin in the body affects all these operations and causes major effects. Type 1 diabetes is the genetic one that you naturally have. A couple of my cousins have it, and they've grown up all life about it. So I knew a little bit about it, but it's interesting to learn a bit more. And that's when your body does not produce insulin at all. So the lack of production means your body does not have a means of absorbing the blood sugar, which is running through your veins following your eating, which can cause hyperglycemia, which is too much blood sugars. And that an injection of insulin is what's required to help reduce this. So that's why a lot of the times type 1 diabetics will inject themselves insulin after eating foods, and they stay away from high sugar content foods to stop themselves feeling like that. Too much insulin is called hypoglycemia, and that occurs when there's low blood sugar. So often, I know my cousins used to refer to themselves as low, or mum, I'm feeling low, to say to my auntie or whatever, and they'd get a snack or something to kind of increase the blood sugar because their insulin's dropping too low. So it's a fine balance to try and keep it in check. There's many ways of doing that now. Like one of my cousins has got a wee pack that keeps on him that slowly drips insulin in. You have to keep it at a constant rate, which he seems to really like.
I know a couple people that that did that.
And my other cousin doesn't use it, but it's each their own, whatever works for them. Type 2, type 2 is the more common one in America and for overweight people and etc. etc. And that's when your body stops producing insulin correctly, or stop using, I should say, insulin correctly. Yeah, so it's basically not using the insulin correctly, so it's producing it, but it's not doing anything. So it's really difficult to kind of control what you're using there, and you can't just inject yourself insulin because you've already got it and it's not using it. So it's a little bit more difficult to change, and that's why diet is usually more effective to change that than it is injecting insulin. So how is this used for bodybuilders? That's what the bodybuilders use it. So essentially, glucose comes from food and from the liver and into the cells. Muscles in particular use the glucose in the glycolytic stage, so that sort of shortish kind of stage, where it helps produce energy. With increased glucose, the muscles can work in the stage for longer and decrease the negative effects such as using up amino acids and proteins to provide energy. So essentially, when the insulin goes in, it helps combine the genes a little bit. It also helps allow more amino acids in. They join together to create proteins, but it can do that more regularly because you've got increased receptors to allow the amino acids in, as well as affecting the DNA to help combine them into proteins. Okay. So that's what insulin does. So if you inject that falsely, if you control your blood sugar and you inject additional insulin to what your pancreas is creating, you can help increase and stimulate those muscles at a higher rate. And it also allows you to eat a lot more to keep those blood sugar levels up. So you have to make sure you're eating right, and that's why you see a lot of these massive bodybuilders who inject insulin will often have like a full sugar Red Bull with them, or like a Monster Energy drink, because they need to keep the blood sugar levels up while they inject insulin, because otherwise you can go into the hypoglycemia, which can be pretty bad for your brain and stuff. They can also help muscles store glucose, so they can help themselves recover quicker. So when you're not using them, the circle uses glucose to help repair and recover and get back to basics. But as I mentioned, bodybuilders use this a lot. It's actually, I think it's becoming more and more popular up and above steroids because it's a little more readily available, easier to get because people know people who have diabetes, etc. It's a good way for diabetics to make money. Don't do that, diabetics. But it's also used in many medium sprint type sports, so 200 meters, 100 meters, even up to like the 1,000 meter sprints, because that's still in a glycolytic stage. It can be really beneficial for those type of athletes. But it's been used as speculated, it's used in a number of other sports. And as we mentioned, the side effects are just your ups and downs, and also you can acquire type 2 diabetes if you don't already have it by injecting too much insulin, because your body either stops producing the right insulin or stops being able to use it correctly. So even if you're in shape, you're good, you can still
cause yourself to have type 2 diabetes. Wow.
Am I boring you yet?
No.
Okay, we've got one more.
Okay.
And this one is probably the most questionable and also the best. Like, this is the one that, like, if I was to take performance enhancement drugs, this is the one I'd be looking at. Okay. Can you guess what it is?
Human growth hormone.
Human growth hormone. This is like the tits. This is what everyone wants to take.
Yes.
And it's very hard to find. You can't, if you do it correctly. So there's ways of, you just can't find it. There are ways if you do it through synthetic growth hormone, but now there's ways of getting it from natural animals and plants, and your body, they don't have ways of detecting that yet, because it's animal, it's just growth hormone. So how this works, very similar to insulin in the fact that, so basically growth hormone is produced in the brain, or growth hormone, it's like ready, it's basically something happens in your brain which produces something which produces growth hormone. Which sounds silly, but basically it produces something which goes to your pineal gland. I think it's the pineal gland, maybe the pituitary gland. Pituitary? I keep saying this wrong. I say it's pineal. What's the pineal gland? That's in your head as well. Or is that something else? I don't know. I'm probably saying something stupid. Anyway, yeah, the pituitary gland. And so those receptors connect with that, and that produces growth hormone.
Okay.
So it's all up in the brain. That splits off into different sectors of the body. It goes through the bloodstream, but it also goes to the liver. And the liver, when it does its sort of magic, or part of its magic anyway, because it goes into the liver and through like a system called like the JAK-STAT pathway, basically doing all these sort of combining receptors, breaking down and twiddling about a bit. It produces something called insulin-like growth factor, type 1. And that comes from the liver. And that basically helps that famous protein synthesis. So what it does, that insulin, as I mentioned earlier, very similar, it breaks through the bloodstream walls going into the muscle. So it attaches to the receptors of the muscles, goes into the muscles, opened up other parts of the muscle to allow more amino acids in. And then also combines with the DNA within the muscle to allow those amino acids to combine together to create proteins. Various types of proteins that help strength, size, and mass of the muscle itself. The really interesting thing about growth hormone is in your body it is elevated when you have high amino acids in there. So us taking our BCAAs, good way of increasing growth hormone, but also combined with low sugar, so low blood sugar, low fatty acids, and increased exercise. So if you exercise, take amino acids, have low fat and low blood sugar, your natural body will naturally produce more growth hormone, which is great.
Yeah.
That makes me not want to drink fizzy juice and sugars as much, if I can get more of that naturally. So as your muscles open up to let more amino acids in, because you've got increased amino acids, it sort of stacks, Your muscles are opening up, you've got all this spare amino acids, they go in. Now typically what I'd do is take amino acids out so that growth hormone would decrease, so that's that sort of increase-decrease. But if you're adding the additional BCAAs in, then you've got a more surplus of BCAAs, allowing more increase, more growth hormone, etc., etc. A nice wee cycle. And once they're in, as I mentioned, they help the oh my god, I hate, that's why I didn't do biology. All these words I just can't get. Basically, the increase of muscle. But growth hormone's great for everything. It goes into your bones, your cartilage. It helps create a osteoblast and osteoclasp. Something basically strengthens and increases the bones. Help if the cartilage, it can help. Well, basically it'll increase that and it'll make them bigger and also make them sort of reciprocate or something, differentiate. So essentially what it'll do is increase the size of them, and then some of them will be turned into bone, so it'll increase the length and size of your bone. So not only is it increasing the strength and the length, but also the width of the bone and density. It's good. But it can be known, or has been known, or has been speculated to, I'm not too sure, because it helps grow all cells. It's really anabolic in that sense, that it helps grow everything. And if you've got bad shit in your body, it grows that. Yeah. So it has been known or suggested that it will help grow tumours, and I'm assuming other things in your body which you don't want to happen. So you have to keep a good checkup if you're doing that. Yeah, so that's pretty amazing. It's like if you're all clear, that's like the most natural way. And so I spoke about the natural way of doing it, but obviously you can inject that, or you can take certain substances which will let your body absorb that or get that. I'm not too sure about that side of things, but I do know that they have yams or sweet potatoes. They've been known to take to get growth hormone out of that. Don't ask me how, but they do. But also from animals, they may not manage to get growth hormone from them. And I've heard a lot about that through MMA. MMA is ripe with PEDs, and they're all trying to find an advantage because it's life and death a lot of the case. Whew, breathe. It's so interesting. I could
very
talk about this stuff. I've been watching so many YouTube videos and I'm like, I don't understand any of these words, but I hear protein synthesis. I'm like, okay, so it's good. But is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. It's interesting because people, I remember as a kid, even now, I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to have like a full steroided out Olympics to see what's human body with a little bit extra capable of doing. How fast can we run? How high can we jump?
It becomes like the engineered humans.
Yeah, well, that's another topic we need to get into about genetic modification of humans or genetic selection. Whew, that's going to change the world entirely. Imagine being able to choose, oh yeah, I want my kid to be 7 foot tall, I want to have blonde hair, I want them to be this strong. It's going to be mental. I can't wait.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to manipulate my own kid. Why not? Like, I know it's against nature, but well, it depends. What's the advantage of it? They're the best athlete. Athletics will get boring if everyone's the best.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a normal human and you haven't been genetically modified, it's not interesting anymore.
Yeah, it takes away from it.
In fact, I think what would be more interesting is going back to people. Okay, well, you're a gene freak. What are these real people capable of doing? That'd be more interesting, I think. I won't be alive for then. However, they do say it will happen in 50 years or so. Anyway, so it's been affecting sports for quite a while.
Yes.
Way back, I hear.
Way longer than I thought.
Yeah. Well, I know from like the 60s.
Yeah,
but I'm assuming before. Okay, let me hear. Tell me the history of it.
All right, so we got to go all the way back to like 776 BC.
776 BC?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Like ancient Greeks.
Damn, okay. So what were they doing?
So they were using opium juice in the Olympics, like the original Olympic Games.
Okay, so they weren't necessarily...
They weren't using like steroids, but
well, I guess it's affecting the hormones some way, I guess.
And I mean, also like I guess it like took away some of the pain so they could go harder for longer or whatever. So that's when it kind of started. By 100 AD, the Roman gladiators were using stimulants and hallucinogenics to prevent fatigue and injury.
Nice.
By the late 19th century, French cyclists and lacrosse players were drinking, it's called like Vin Mariani.
Wait, the late 19th century?
Yes.
So is that what, like 1890s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was a mixture of coca leaf extract and wine because coca and cocaine were popular to reduce fatigue and hunger.
Yeah.
So like when they would go on these long cyclist things, they didn't want to be hungry, so they'd take a lot of cocaine before. But
were they taking it to cheat, or were they just taking it to just last longer? Like they weren't competing with you, or?
No, they were competing.
Okay, so
it was like it was cheating, but it was cheating so they could last longer. Like that was the way of cheating.
But was it like everyone did it, or was it just we don't know? Yeah. Okay.
From 1904 to 1920, that's when they started being used in the Olympics. Thomas Hicks was one of the first ones in the Olympics. He almost died because of a mixture of brandy and strychnine.
It's so funny. Like now they've got all these complex like chemicals, and he was having brandy and some other stuff.
So they were taking this strychnine. I don't know how to say it. Heroin, cocaine, and caffeine.
Damn.
That's like what all they were mixing together.
That's like an LEC4.
So then 1928, that was the first rule against doping in sports in track and field. 1940 to 1945, the Nazis were testing steroids on prisoners.
Standard.
And Hitler. He
tested
on himself.
Okay.
Yeah. And it promoted aggression and physical strength. They found out it promoted aggression and physical strength.
Uh-huh.
And then also during the war, American, British, German, and Japanese soldiers were distributing amphetamines. Or like the armed forces were distributing amphetamines to their soldiers to like help them survive.
See, I think I mentioned this in another podcast, and I think I'm wrong, but I'm sure I heard it somewhere that in ration packs there was like cocaine provided. Did I mention that on a podcast before?
I don't know, but
I feel like it
sounds like it.
Yeah, I don't know what's the difference between what's an amphetamine again. What's an amphetamine?
It's the type of drug.
But just what? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Okay, cool.
1950s, athletes began taking amphetamines that the soldiers had used. Mm-hmm. So then this is like kind of when it becomes into like hardcore into sports. 1958, the FDA approved the first anabolic steroid for sale in the U.S. This doctor made amphetamine Ronicol.
Okay.
Yeah. And then August 22nd, 1960, was the first, the first athlete died due to doping in the Summer Olympics. Yeah. He was a Danish cyclist.
Does it say how he died? Just doping?
He took that amphetamine Ronicol.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And died.
Okay.
So then you have, it just continues every year, like more and more people dying from, like this, the very next, well, no, this was 1967, a British cyclist during Tour de France died from amphetamines and brandy. They're still mixing with brandy at this point. So that was the year that the International Olympic Committee established like a medical commission to fight doping.
Why brandy?
I don't know. But it's always brandy.
Maybe it's just like a cyclist, because cyclists must be kind of half posh people, like middle class, right? You don't get like a working class cyclist, do you?
Probably not.
I don't know.
It's 1968, they put the first drug test in the Olympic Games.
All right.
Yeah. And then in October of that year...
That's actually earlier than I thought. Okay, nice.
Yeah, October of that year, the first Olympic athlete was disqualified for doping. Huh. He was Swedish. And then in 1972, 7 more were disqualified because that was when the first full-scale drug test happened. 1983, there was a surprise drug test at the Pan Am Games, and like a lot of people withdrew from it, which pretty much says like I'm definitely taking something, and 19 people failed the drug test. Yes. So then 1988 happens, and that's like the big
1988, did you say?
Yeah, that's like the big Olympic, like I think that's like the Seoul. Yeah, that was the thing in Seoul where Ben Johnson, the Canadian sprinter, was stripped of his gold medals because he tested positive for stanzanol.
Yeah, we mentioned that. Yeah.
And he was banned for life after testing positive a second time in 1993.
Wow.
Because you don't learn.
I guess you can try and get away with it, I guess.
Yeah. In 1998, right after that, Reagan signed an Anti-Drug Abuse Act outlawing non-medical steroid sales. Uh-huh. It continues from there. In 1991, Major League Baseball banned steroids, but they don't ban them like different groups were banning things, but not like a whole. There wasn't like a agency at that point that like said.
Yeah, not like WADA. You've got the World Anti-Doping Agency, and you've got USADA, which is United States Anti-Doping Agency. I think.
Yeah, so 1999 is when WADA was established, and then 2000 was the Anti-Doping Agency. And then once that was established, then they started coming up with these different lists of like what was on the banned list, what wasn't. Caffeine was on it at one point. In 2004, caffeine was removed.
Yeah. Yeah,
and we just keep going from there. A lot of...
Interesting with the synthetic ones, because they create this list, but they don't... Remember how we mentioned like the anabolic steroids were created from this 4-carbon chain ring structure. You can just modify them over and over and over, and without people being able to find them or being on a list, you can get away with it. And that happened for so many years. They're still doing it now. That because it's synthetic, they can just alter things slightly and still get the benefits from it.
Yeah,
it's crazy. But I guess that's working the system.
Yeah. By 2005, the Major League Baseball had implemented penalties for positive drug testing, and that's when people started like really getting in trouble for it. 2007, NFL did the same thing. And then...
Wow, crazy. Till 2007.
Yeah. I thought it would be a lot earlier.
Well, yeah, I knew about it when I was a kid. It was very clear. So
then at that point, like, people start coming forward or being caught, I guess. And because of that, they start being stripped of their medals. Like, 2007, Marion Jones was a track star who admitted to using steroids prior to the 2000 Olympics. And she was stripped of 3 gold medals and 2 bronze medals. 2008, 7 Russian athletes were caught doping prior to the Beijing Olympics. I didn't realize NASCAR also had steroids in it, like doping.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they'd have necessarily steroids, but they'll have something to keep your, like, a nootropic, some sort of thing to keep your brain, I would have thought, sharp, perhaps. So in 2008, NASCAR announced stricter doping policies. 2009, New York Yankees Alex Rodriguez tested positive for steroids in 2003. So there was this drug test done in 2003 that was supposed to be anonymous. Somehow the results got leaked, and then from then on, like, all these people started getting penalized for this drug test, this anonymous drug test from 2003, like 5 or 6 years later, because they all
failed it.
Wow.
Yeah. So 2 players from the Red Sox in 2004 and 2007 World Series team tested positive during the anonymous test. 5 other players also were tied to positive tests, and so they all got they got in trouble for it. Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Sammy Sosa.
Yeah. Barry Bonds is the big famous one that sort of started the big baseball one, from what I recall.
Yeah. And then blood tests weren't introduced into Major League Baseball until 2011.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what were they doing? Just PS tests,
I guess.
Damn.
2012, Lance Armstrong was stripped of 7 Tour de France titles, but he declined to fight the doping charges then. But then in 2013, he admitted it on Oprah.
Yeah. He also, I think, a bronze medal from the Olympics as well. I think.
Yeah, and then it keeps going from there.
I think every sport has had someone, like I could tell you. So from I know a lot about this stuff, but I like the MMA. I watch UFC quite a lot, and they've gone through different cycles of it. They've had testosterone replacement. They've had different steroids, and now they're sort of looking at various other type of things. And USADA, which is, as I said, the United States Anti-Doping Agency, they keep a strict tabs on them all. But what they're doing that's really interesting is they'll do because people can cycle on and off these things, and they're really smart and they can sort of hide it. They're sort of doing on and off season tests, and then they're also holding on to the blood or whatever they take to test it in future if new detection methods are created. So, and that's happened in the Olympics as well, actually. So, for example, from the 2008 Olympics and stuff, I think they've kept blood since then. So, in 10 years' time, if they create this new way of finding this drug, they can go back and test these athletes, and they can potentially be stripped from them. So it's take it pretty seriously, which I understand why.
Yeah, I agree. So then some of the statistics from different sports. So in cycling, there's an average of 3.6% positive testing, and that's the highest doping findings in the Olympics.
You think it'd be more, eh?
Yeah, but I guess 3.6 is still pretty high. Like that's how many positives they get. This isn't how many people who are doing it. This is just how many positives they're finding.
I guess, yeah, it's still pretty, yeah.
Weightlifting is 3%, boxing's 2.9, triathlon's 2.7, baseball 2.5.
See, it's weird because you'd never actually think baseball. Baseball's always one that surprised me.
Baseball's huge in this, though.
Yeah, it's massive, and I never quite got it. Like, I was like, but maybe it's because I guess it's all about hitting the ball harder, being faster with it, sharper, being more on top of it. So I guess it does make sense. And the type of drug that helps that is maybe the one that's very easy to detect. So that's why it's sort of come that way. It's not so apparent when it comes to other type of sports. But I never understood the baseball one. Yeah. I thought they'd find it in basketball or in NFL way beforehand. Yeah,
I agree.
So that Icarus documentary I mentioned, it starts off with blood doping, but then it goes on to the PEDs. I think it's specifically steroids. I'm not too sure. Just general PEDs in the Russian Olympic teams, and that's all teams, not just your cycling or your weightlifting. And they went into this whole thing about how they were able to cheat the system, and one of the main guys out the drug agency of Russia talked about all how it happened, and it just shows you that regardless of how many people are getting banned or how many different ways of catching you, they'll continue to do it and cheat the system as best they can. Yeah. It's interesting.
It is.
I don't know, do you know of any other PEDs that we've not covered?
I mean, I learned about some today.
Yeah. I'm sure there are others. I'm sure people know. But these are the kind of 4 or 5 main ones. Yeah. I've heard of or used. Oh, not used. Yeah, I've used all of these all at once.
Please don't.
No, I'll try not to. Okay. But yeah, the sport, it really upsets me. Like, so the thing, I'm going to put a wee mumble grumble in here. Things that annoy me, right? When people get depicted as role models. Role models in society piss me off. Okay. Right? And all these sports stars, like, I hate people from sports being role models in general. I don't think anyone who's a pro athlete should be a role model, because it's very difficult, and most of these people that make money are naturally gifted, genetically gifted. You know, it's like less than 3%. It's like 0.3% of people that play college football go into the NFL. Less than that, I think.
Okay.
You know, and it's like those people are either naturally gifted or they know someone.
Yes.
You know? So how are you a role model? Why should you be a role model to someone who just wants to work hard and have a better life?
Yeah.
You know? It's not those type of people. And two things. It's when they get super rich and then they act like assholes, hit their wives or their husbands, or, you know, they do something ridiculous. You know, Tiger Woods was a role model for not only black people, but for sportsmen, you know, both. And he messed all that up, you know, and it's like, don't get me wrong, he's still a good sportsman, but, you know, all these NFL players who end up committing crimes, and I don't know, a lot of them don't, but
a lot of them do.
It pisses me, and role models in general. Like, so now, she's unfortunately passed away now, so it's really harsh saying this, right? But Amy Winehouse was once voted at Cosmo or Glamour Role Model of the Year. At what point in her success, other than the very beginning, should she be considered a role model for any girl, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not hating on her. She had a fantastic voice, and it's very sad that she passed away. But at no point was she ever a role model.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm getting off another topic because it just annoys me. Role model. Look at good people. Good people, they're role models. Not successful people. They're not role models. Good people are role models. You know, look at someone who's actually done something, committed their lives to helping others without gaining from it personally. That's a role model. That's someone you should look up to. None of these bloody athletes who earn millions or these rappers who earn millions, you know. Ignore them. Look at someone good who's done something. Sorry, it's one of my pet peeves in the life, what people consider role models. Anyway, okay, breathe. Yes, sports stars who do it, you know. People like that. People looked up to Lance Armstrong.
Yeah, and they find out and they're crushed. And
you know, and yes, I did it because everyone else was doing it. No, it's not. You affect more people than just you, you know, and I know you want to win, but you don't, at a stage, you become more than just a cyclist or more than just run. The whole Live Strong thing and the whole, like, don't get me wrong, he still did a lot good for the world. Yeah. That Live Strong thing made millions and millions for cancer research or whatever. But anyway, sorry. What else have you got on drugs?
That's all I've got on drugs.
Yeah. All right. Sorry about my wee rant.
That's what Mumble Grumble is. It's
yeah.
All right.
Okay. Got it in there.
Good.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks for letting us know about try to do this topic. We hope we've done some justice. I know we've probably messed up some words and some of your biologists will be like, actually, this doesn't do that. And, well, you're right, probably. Just let us know so we can maybe correct it, or just let us know so we can other people find out, because it's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
If
you have any more ideas for topics, let us know.
Yes, please do. Where can they find us?
At Instagram it's just the Mumblecast.
Yeah. Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah.
At the Mumblecast.
At the Mumblecast.
Our website, we do have a contact part on our website.
Yes. If
you want to send us a message there, it'd be quite nice. Or you can do Kayla's personal Instagram, which would be
Kayla0134.
I don't know if you want to give that away or not. And mine is at Neville's Mail. That's about it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, we'll be back next week with something else. Mm-hmm. Maybe a jumble, maybe another topic. We'll see how we feel. Thank you for sticking with us and missing last week. This is a longer episode because it's a more interesting topic, or a longer topic at least.
Yes.
All right. Well, I've been Liam.
I'm Gail.
And this has been Mumblecast.
Bye.
Bye.